Hello and welcome to another WeAreDevelopers Live. I'm back in Berlin. I'm back in European time and not at 6 a.m. in my hotel room like last time. So, but next week we might have somebody from the East Coast who said they're going to come. So they're going to be tired and we can make fun of them. So that's good. How are you doing, Dan?
I'm very well. I'm not going to rub it in and say I've just been on boring old UK time zone, so I've not had any of the travel that you've had. But yeah, it must be good to be back in your own bed. Hey, nothing beats home.
Kind of, yeah. I mean, I always fascinated by American hotel rooms because you get these 2 double beds with about 600 pillows. And I don't know why. It's like basically, I feel like I should use them both, like sleep in a different one every night, because otherwise it's not worthwhile. And it's a really bizarre change of like what you get in a room in Europe and in America. But yeah, it's an interesting bit. And then of course you got the when you get into your hotel room late at night on the first day of a conference, and you just try to find every light switch to make sure that all the lights are off when they don't have one main switch. And they're all hidden somewhere in the corners and stuff. It's like bizarre.
Yeah, it's technology though, isn't it? I think it's like we love it because when you go into a hotel room and it's got like an actual physical key, you feel like, whoa, this is like going back in time because you're so used to the kind of scan cards. But there's now we're putting technology into everything, and for me it's I had one where it was like an air conditioner, and it was like you couldn't take it off of auto, and it just wound me up because I was like, how does it know how cold or hot I want to be? Like it doesn't, But yeah, too much technology.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Like you get out of the room and then the cleaners come in. In America, they seem to like turn the room temperature into like penguin when you come back. Like every single time you come back in, and it's like freezing cold. And it's I don't know why the waste of energy is there, but yeah, what can you do?
Yeah.
Anyways, so we have another guest today, and we're very excited about get somebody in. I feel like we're doing a disservice to our audience by having accessibility people every week right now. But Daniela Kubesch, you did a lot of good stuff in the accessibility world, and I thought it would be fun to have you on the show to do a bit of chit chat with about different web standard things and accessibility things. So quickly introduce yourself. What do you do, and why would you think that we want to talk to you?
Yes, hello. Thank you for the invite. So my name is Daniela Kubesch. I'm an accessibility engineer, so I do a lot of different things from front-end development, consulting, accessibility testing, to user research, human-computer interaction, inclusive design, all of that on a daily basis, and with a focus on accessibility for some time now, I would say. And I try to dedicate much of my time into educating others, teaching at my former university, being public on social media, giving a voice, and pursuing public speaking, and also maintaining an open source project called Elephant to educate developers.
Cool. We were jealous earlier when we talked before that show that you're in Barcelona and it's like warm and beautiful, whereas like dismal and horrible, and according to our mindset here in England and Germany. So how did you end up in Barcelona, seeing that you're Austrian originally, right?
Yeah, true. I grew up near Vienna, but I've been in Barcelona for about 2 years now. And I don't know, I always preferred places that are warmer. I wanted to live abroad for some years. I lived in Sweden for a year before coming to Barcelona, but it was a bit too dark and cold for my personal preference. And so, yeah, in the end, I decided Spain, a big city near the beach. So that's great. And I really love it here.
It's Catalonia, isn't it? It's not Spain.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Yes. So, of course, you have to learn Catalan and Spanish, but that's fine with me.
I like that there's a .cat domain and you only can publish Catalonian sites on it. And there was this long .cat, which was just a long scrolling website with one cat on it. That was quite fun. So where do you live in Stockholm? In Sweden, in Stockholm, or?
No, in Halmstad, which is between Göteborg and Malmö.
Okay.
They have a university there with an international program where I studied human-computer interaction for a year.
If you ever, just a tip for people, if you ever want to see Scandinavian people misbehave, take the ferry from Frederikshavn to Göteborg. It's a 4-hour ferry ride, and everybody just takes it to get drunk on basically duty-free alcohol, because it's about half the price what you normally pay in the country.
Yeah, exactly. That was like a must stop for all the international students. And every time somebody was visiting, they brought in drinks and snacks from the duty-free shop as well, because it's very expensive in Sweden.
I did love that basically the Swedish people took the ferry and back to Sweden without ever descending into Denmark just to keep drinking. That was the fun bit about that as well.
Yeah, there's also the party boat culture from what I remember, yeah.
Yeah. And in Norway, it's quite fun. At Oslo airport, you go through a liquor store to get your luggage. There's just no other way to get out of the airport because everybody just expects you to buy things duty free.
Dangerous.
Really, really weird. But yeah, Scandinavians, what can you do? Cool. Let's take a look at some resources that we collected that we actually had from the newsletter. Spillover, what didn't fit in. And the first thing that I found really interesting is that people get excited about is that YouTube has a new video player. I technically haven't seen it yet because I watch YouTube mostly on my telly rather than on my computer by now. But I mean, what they've done is they basically just slimmed it down and made it like half transparent. And I'm not sure how I feel about this. It looks slicker, but it also feels to me like an accessibility kind of issue, especially like with liquid glass on iOS as well. Like, because it means half transparency is always a complete pain to get the foreground and background contrast right. Right, Daniela?
Yeah, exactly. I can see that they're doing it now because it's trendy with all the liquid glass from the new iOS, but it is really a problem with the transparency because you don't know what the underlying video is, and if it's very bright, then the contrast is just insufficient. And it's also pretty funny because I've seen multiple videos, tutorials so far, where people show how to go to the accessibility settings on your phone to change the liquid glass to be more accessible, but for people without a disability. So it's kind of, I don't know, promoting the accessibility settings and creating awareness, but it's also a problem that people have to actually change the settings in order to use their mobile phone.
I like that the introductory video of Liquid Glass had like when you started it on YouTube, it had the big red play button in the middle, and it basically said Liquid Ass. Which was just right covering it, and you're like, "There's something you should test, right?"
I wonder that though with looking at this in general, you know, that I know what you mean. It kind of, yeah, it looks modern, you know, but I don't know. I mean, we did say, Chris, that we felt like maybe it was time for some kind of update. That it's been there for so long, you know, and I suppose people's kind of habits change. But yeah, some of it just seems like it's I don't know. It's like a press release, isn't it, over something that's such a minor detail. Like they've got in there a part about like the double skip feature will be less intrusive. My first thought was I was on a video the other day, and I think it might have been with this new player, and I thought the double tap had been removed because it felt like it was one of those videos where when you click, it's just going to go to a different part of the video without the double skip feature. So it's quite confusing for me. Where I felt like, if you're changing it, but now I feel like some of the features are gone. Yeah, sure, I can test and know that they're still there, but it feels really kind of confusing to feel like something you're used to is now fundamentally changed, you know.
And there's lots of keyboard shortcuts that nobody knows about, like J and K to go forward and backward and these kind of things. That I think that's always the problem when you put accessibility features in or usability features that people don't find, you know, like just by chance kind of thing. That's always the biggest problem. How do you actually make the UX so that the inclusive things are there? I love when you go to different websites and just hit tab and see the skip links showing up. Like, so many people use that, and it's a very important feature, but most people forget about it. And it's an interesting thing because as a keyboard user or a screen reader user, you don't want to click tab through like 500 links to get to the main element. And when you put a main role on it, it allows you to do that, but most people forget about that as well. This one reminded me just at the conference in America, I met with Dennis Lambre, which I haven't met for 10 years or so, and he built this Twitter interface that was a simple interface. And in 2008, I wrote this easy YouTube thing as well. That basically was an interface that was making it simple to interact with YouTube with like big colorful buttons and video sizes and things. and it was interesting. It's now defunct because the YouTube API didn't allow me to do the things that I wanted to do. But it was interesting to see back then how it was possible to take web technology and hack with an API and hack your own interface for people. And there was this video that I had with a blind user testing, and it was just wonderful, where she basically said, like, after 3 minutes of using my player, she told the interviewer that she can go now because she can listen to her music and watch her videos, or listen to her videos because she didn't need her anymore. And I think this is something that got better. By now, most video players are proper buttons rather than just divs with random stuff on it. But it was interesting to see that it needed people like me and Dennis to actually just show those companies what can be possible if you just change it around. And it's good that these things existed, but it's kind of sad that we needed to hack those things. So hopefully nowadays, people out of the box find more interesting things in there. But we have a section later on as well where somebody talks about like HTML5 video and how it's actually not as perfect as we wanted it to be. There's lots of things with the autoplay and with the different events that are not as accessible as we want them to be. But I think it's great that video became just an element in the page and not just a Flash movie or something embedded that it was in the past. But yeah, that's it about the YouTube player. Oh, we didn't start the timer. But anyways, now I thought this was fascinating that basically now OpenAI is allowing for erotic chats with ChatGPT. I mean, this is desperate, isn't it?
I don't know. I feel like this sounds like some Black Mirror episode, and it also, I mean, it reminds me a lot of the movie Her, which is also funny because I read that OpenAI published a voice that is very similar to the voice of Scarlett Johansson, which was the voice in the movie Her of the computer, which was, yeah, I don't know. So they did it like very openly, but it's also, I don't know, it gives me the chills a little bit.
It also makes me freak out about people. I mean, if I go to ChatGPT, why would I start an erotic chat with that thing? Like, what's wrong with people?
I wonder if I think there's what they're going to use it for, I suppose, is up to them, right? And I know what you mean. It's kind of really it's a bit of a sad sign if we kind of don't really speak to each other, very much at all. But there was the part in there that sort of confused me, where it says something like, we don't want to be the moral police, and so they've received this criticism over the way the controls and the kind of guardrails and the safeguarding, but then they've brought out something that's almost designed to push against those things. It's I suppose it's a stress test to some degree, like it to see what can get through, but it just feels like they're sort of contradicting themselves. They're saying we want to protect people more, but we're going to allow them to create content that almost definitely won't be appropriate. And they say in there they'll be verified as humans or verified as adults. I mean, we all know from what's happened in the UK how easy that is to trick with a VPN, etc. So I don't know. It just felt a lot like, like they're saying, yeah, we've made this really dangerous thing, but we're not the police. We're not the police, but we've made this dangerous thing, but we're not the police. It's playing both sides.
I think that's where it comes down to as well. Like, no, you're a social platform. Of course, your job is to kind of police what people are doing there, and basically stop excluding people, stop hate speech and these kind of things. But I mean, with like Grok and others, those are out the window. Like they make them allow for everything and call it free speech, and I don't subscribe to that. I just feel it weird. Of course, everybody can do whatever they want with it, but pointing out that this is now you can do erotic chats with the thing as a sales feature is just a very bizarre, desperate attempt to get even more traffic. And ChatGPT traffic has gone down, so that's the other thing. Like, I think the hype machine is kind of broken in this regard. That's why they started with that. But that is also, I mean, Dan, you just reposted that on LinkedIn as well, more articles are now created by AI than humans, and more than half of the content on the web seems to be AI generated.
Yeah. And sorry, go on, Chris.
No, go on. Yeah, I mean, this is just not surprising, but sad.
Yeah, I mean, I'd wonder if either of you have kind of seen it or noticed it, because I'm fascinated by this dead internet theory. I actually found about a week ago there's a subreddit on Reddit. I think it is just something like dead internet or dead internet theory. But I saw yesterday somebody posted a link to, I think it was like a social media platform, or it might have been to another subreddit. But it was basically them saying, here's a link to a subreddit. I'm sure that all the content on there is bot generated. And then they said, even the comments that are responding to the content that's on there are all from like brand new accounts with like 3 posts and things like this. And then that led to people kind of saying, why would they possibly do this? And then there were people saying, well, potentially it's to try and give the legitimacy to those Reddit accounts. You know, if they like a few things and they make a few posts, then they can upvote other content, and then it could be part of like astroturfing. I post some content, 500 bots say that it's great, and then that boosts it. But it was the first time I'd seen humans in, you know, actually seeing this for themselves. This headline saying most of the content you're reading is AI generated. It was the first time I'd seen humans talking to each other. I assume they're humans, could have been bots, saying, hang on, are we surrounded by bots? Are there actually any humans here? And then you couldn't verify if the responses were actually bots saying, no, we're all human. You know, it's nothing means anything. So it's a really fascinating.
Yeah, that's so interesting.
Yeah,
and
strange
shocking and scary. Yeah. But what I found interesting in that article was that they said we have more AI written articles, but then in the end, I mean, the quality of the articles is good, but they don't perform as well with search engine optimization and coming up in search results. And so I think that's also very interesting, because I feel like a lot of people use AI to write the articles to push their search engine optimization goals. But now, I don't know, it's not what they're getting with it.
Which is good. I think the SEO optimization and automated SEO has always been a bit of a worry. Like, you know, your keyboard stuffing before that in description fields in the HTML back in the old days, and like hidden text and these kind of things. But yeah, it feels like the just giving people what they want in a fashion that seems to have been successful before is tiring people out. So and I mean, in LinkedIn, I commented on your thing, like, nobody stops you from publishing on the web. And please do, and use your own voice. Even if your English is crap, use crap English rather than just letting ChatGPT make you sound like a second car salesman 1985. Like, I think it's a very, very important thing to keep your own voice out there. And I think with the Reddit bit, it's really interesting because Reddit has been feeding the AI bots, and now the AI bots feed on their own former content. So there's a cannibalization of like bots on bots thing going on.
Yeah,
I mean, I use a VPN, and Reddit has me blocked every single time I have turned on the VPN. So that's really weird as well, that you have to log in to get in, because as soon as a VPN expects it to be a bot.
Ah, that's interesting. I mean, it's kind of tapping into something though as well. I mean, just as another side point, a friend of mine is a music producer. He does music for like a publishing company, so kind of Netflix trailers and things like this. And he said already their own composers have started to, 1 or 2 of them have submitted songs that have actually been AI generated, and they're hoping it could kind of slip through. And so there's this strange thing of like, we're all quite good at actually recognizing AI content, but I think people often think that you can't smell it, you can't see it. And so they share it, and everybody reading it goes, well, now this means nothing because it's not your voice. And there's, you know, it feels like we're in that growing pain of people still not everybody being able to kind of see and figure out when something's AI and tell the difference. And that's going to get increasingly more difficult.
Yeah, that's true.
And it's interesting that Pinterest said it's actually adding limits the amount of AI slop in your feed. And I always wonder how they would do that. Like, how do you recognize what has been generated and what is actually made by people? Because I see a lot of stuff. I mean, I was really disappointed that even fluffy animals are now AI generated. Like, I mean, I only follow dogs on Instagram, and now you get like these, look at this fluffy dog, and it's basically completely AI generated thing. Or look what my dog brought home. And yeah, it's interesting to see how they would do that. It would be interesting to talk to them. But seeing that they're part of Meta, they probably know where it's been generated by some of their bots and has a watermark in it or something. But I'm just very tired of just getting like random stuff coming in, and yeah, I don't know if the controls would limit that or people get around it. And also, what's the benefit from it? I mean, there's completely unhinged AI animation stuff coming around, and I always wonder what it's for. Is it just flooding, or I don't know?
Yeah, it often seems like it's just there to flood the platform, but I also don't see the bigger purpose of it being there and existing. But I can totally see how people get frustrated, especially on Pinterest, where you create your boards and get your inspiration, maybe also for DIY, so that you have a lot of stuff that is totally AI generated, maybe not even replicable. So it's like you can't use the platform like you intended to do, and there's all this AI noise basically. So
I'm always annoyed that when you do an image search in Bing or Google, that you get Pinterest results that you have to log in to see. It feels like that should not have been indexed because it's a closed garden rather than just images on the web.
yeah, true. I also get frustrated when this happens, when I like have the Google search results and I have a quick preview and I click on it and it's behind a paywall and I'm like, oh, okay, but then why is it ranked so high? Like I can access it anyways. Yeah.
Yeah, in Bing, there's a company called Alami, which basically has like watermarked lots and lots of images, and no matter what you search, they're the first results. And I don't understand that either. Like, I don't know what they did to play the system, pay Microsoft shitloads of money, I guess. But it feels so wrong to just get like a watermarked. You have to pay the image if you just do an image search, especially when you define the license that you want to find things with, and then you still get these images in there. Yeah, that was an interesting one with like SlideShare, when SlideShare was a bit and some .NET magazine in England, when they took pictures of you, they sold them later on for like reselling on big picture boards, and it was interesting that my picture was like offered as like web developer for like $2,000 or something. Hang on, there's somebody coming. So let's talk about the. Well, say something about this. Hang on.
Yeah. Yeah. No, this is the beauty of a live show, isn't it? So yeah, the Europe plan to ditch US tech giants. I know we haven't got it there on screen, so I'll open it on my own one. I mean, we won't get involved in any of the political side of it, but we can kind of talk about, you know, the kind of general shift that we're seeing. So I'll just give you some of the headline, and I'll kind of cut in the actual article when we come to it later. In essence, the headline is kind of telling you a little bit about a kind of general shift that we're seeing in Europe, away from US-based products and services, and that they sort of surmise that this has largely come from a loss of trust in some of the tech companies, and I suppose some of the stuff we see going on with, you know, NVIDIA chips and the bubble that's being created around the kind of hardware to power the AI industry is causing these hugely powerful and very valuable stocks, but also meaning that, you know, if you're not from the US, you might be saying, oh, well, I'm not sure I necessarily want to be a part of that. So yeah, we're just saying there, Chris, about the shift away from US products to open source ones. Does it feel, is it just me? Does it feel like this is the first time it might actually be gaining steam? Because I'm seeing a lot of everyday people, and I mean non-techie types, looking for alternatives for normal everyday things that they're used to using, with a little bit of a, okay, there is no replacement for that, I'm sticking with that, but I can replace this. Do either of you do that? Do you try and look at the source of the software, and if you could use it more if it's an EU or European version over a US one?
I think there is that was even part of like comedy shows in Germany now, and in the news as well, where basically it says it is tied to a certain person running a certain country at the moment, and also to the new cloud whatever law that was coming out a few months ago that basically says like they got access to everything now from the US. And the other bit, of course, was that like we are so reliant on the US cloud. If people were blocking us out, we would be basically set impossible to work, you know. Like that was the biggest issue. Like the sovereignty, the digital sovereignty we had in several Coffee with Developers as well, is a big topic right now because of the current political climate in certain countries, and like putting tariffs on everything and these kind of things. So that's why it became a bigger thing. It's been quite Europe has always been very open source friendly, because we said like, okay, that makes sense to actually own the thing and that we have it. And like, I mean, like large companies do like on-prem rather than cloud and these kind of things. But seeing the outages of clouds lately and these kind of things made it more important. And the last government in Germany also had like a big investment in open source and in European infrastructure, and says like we have to be independent from other people with like the political climate worldwide changing. And I think that's an interesting bit to see. I mean, we had like Typo 3 as the content management system coming for the German government. And I mean, Azure Cloud is most of the servers are in Austria and Germany or in the DACH region rather than like the American one. But I think it's also quite fun with the AWS outage that we just had. Like, you just see people using the cloud and using the first server in the dropdown. Everybody uses US East 1. And like then they wonder when something goes down that they're offline. It's a cloud. You can use whatever server as a fallback or even as the first one. So why didn't you choose that one to start with? But yeah, there is a big movement in this, and I think it's going to be interesting. And I'm going to be talking to a few people here in Berlin and the government as well, what that means. But the being independent of the cloud and basically, it's weird because it's World Wide Web to me, but it's not anymore. It's Western world versus the rest, and I find that really disappointing. But it's interesting to see that the public and also politicians are actually looking into that more than they did before. I found that one as well interesting, the open clone wars, that basically shows you websites that you have, and then basically which one is then using which alternative are out there for people, like Bitwarden for 1Password and these kind of things. I mean, some of them are just like demos, but I think it's interesting from time to time to see what you can do. That also ties in with the indie web movement, where people say like, own all your stuff and host your own stuff. Yeah, good luck, I think. But it's still interesting to see that there's opportunities out there, that choices that you can do. You don't have to actually put everything into the one thing. But that was always, when I worked on Firefox and I worked on Edge as well, like people were always like, why is Chrome like owning the browser market? Is it really the best browser? And you're like, yeah, it is, but mostly it's the services that are attached to it. I mean, everybody has a Gmail account, everybody uses Google Maps, and that's why they use Chrome, which is the browser that comes with those. So the services around a browser were the one thing that made people dependent on it. I mean, I have, I think, 14 years of data in Gmail. Before that, I had like 9 years of data in Yahoo. And it always feels like, okay, I mean, my favorite is when they get forced to allow you to actually export your data, and it's just in some random format. Like Twitter was the great example. The Twitter takeout is basically a random HTML page that's completely tough to parse. And you're like, well, we just, by law, we allowed you to export it, but you can do nothing with it, really. So yeah, take a look around. Maybe hosting your own images works as well. I found out the other day that, for example, when you use Amazon Prime, you have unlimited photo storage. I didn't know that this is a thing.
Oh, wow.
Just, yeah, you can upload your photos to Amazon Prime as well, and then watch them on your telly if you want to. So that might be a good thing, just to have a copy of them rather than just a thing there. Now, one thing that I shocked Dan with was this one here, how I must always get hacked by a job interview. And I heard about these things before, and I was aware of them, but you weren't, Dan, right? Like, what was that about?
No, the level of, I mean, yeah, I'd heard about some complex sort of scams, but I hadn't heard of one that was so well executed as this one. So to give you sort of the bullet points of it, essentially, they'd applied for a job. They'd found an organization or a person on LinkedIn that appeared to be the chief blockchain officer at this company. They're a real company. They had it's got in the headline, the real LinkedIn profile. He had 1,000 connections. He seems to be, to all intents and purposes, a real person. And they'd given him, as part of the interview process, a kind of test project to do, and it was very small scale. It was around 30 minutes, and they'd rushed it, in effect, which meant that they were up against the clock. And what this meant was that they had to submit it very quickly towards the end of the process. And in the part where the header says the save is a good the kind of key part, because they say, before I hit npm start, I threw this prompt at my AI cursor agent where they essentially said, before I run it, can you see if there's any suspicious code? Like, is it reading any files, accessing crypto wallets? And it gave them this little, what looks like, you know, some kind of cookie utility, something along those lines. And in effect, it's as they've got underneath, obfuscated, sneaky, evil, and 100% active, embedded between legitimate admin functions ready to execute with full server privileges the moment admin routes were accessed. So he was really a click away from giving them access to absolutely everything and anything. And I was blown away, because this person says for themselves, I'm extremely skeptical. I'm extremely difficult to kind of wear down. You know, I ask a lot of questions. I don't just throw myself into things. And they still nearly got him. So yeah, it shocked me, because again, it's just going to get more and more advanced. And when we're hearing in the last couple of weeks about telephone scammers and how they can, you know, copy your grandmother's voice and things like this, it's like we're getting attacked from all angles. And even when you're technical, you can still get caught out.
I love the sneakiness that even instead of just calling function, they do a new function require. It just feels like over the top to a degree. But yeah, it's the same with like PHP things. As soon as you see like lots of hex codes in there and actually get attached to something, alarm bells should get off. But yeah, it's an interesting thing that it becomes like, I mean, scamming an in-person interviewing for a job feels like a very weird target.
Yeah. What I found pretty scary with this article was, and it also aligns with what you were saying before with the bots on Reddit trying to get credibility, that they had this whole fake person on LinkedIn with connections and postings and the company behind it. So even if you like try to look it up and see, is this credible, you are still fooled, because they put so much effort into that.
Yep. So if you see numbers, always worry about them. But yeah, it's interesting that like even hijacking interview questions is an attack vector now. Feels odd, but yeah.
Yeah.
Now we are in spooky season already, and I love that there's Trick or Treat by Anna Tudor, and we should get her on the show. She's absolutely mental when it comes to like the stuff that she does with CSS. But I love that you got the Trick or Treat, Trick and Treat, Trick XOR Treat, Trick NOR Treat, and Tricks and XOR Treat, and yeah, the CSS is completely unreadable again, and it's just wonderful the way she does these things. But I love that somebody makes a joke and then puts so much effort into actually doing it with CSS, because that's been around as an image for quite a while. But yeah, it's interesting to see, and I always get very disappointed because I can do things like that, but they always look horrible when I do them, and she makes the things look beautiful as well at the same time. That's kind of unfair.
She does. Looking at some of that as well. Just coming from like a video background, that those are really underestimated and underused kind of elements of CSS. That things like, especially the mix blend mode and blend modes, they're really sort of standard everyday meat and potatoes. I use them every day if I'm using Photoshop or Premiere or After Effects. And again, I know you want to keep your sort of rendering time down and things like this, so it's sometimes not overdoing it, but they're really nice, effects that I think people don't actually utilize anywhere near as much, because they're kind of experimental, and just change what that mix blend mode is, see what effect you get, and see if it's something you wouldn't have had without it. I think people should use them more.
There's also a performance issue. Like if you put them in a scrolling interface, you can really see your RAM being eaten really quickly.
Yeah. Very true.
I mean, when I remember, like when I started, PNGs weren't supported in browsers with transparency, so I was like, oh wow, that's possible now. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Another interesting thing is that somebody took the effort to actually take the Duke Nukem game for N64 and decompiled the whole thing, and makes you take a look at the source code right now. And that seems to be a thing that a lot of games happening right now, that people actually take old games that ran out of copyright and basically just then show you how they've been built. And I found that fascinating. This is very much a niche audience, but like I think it's still interesting that we have GitHub and we have basically people to just do that. And I mean, to me, that was always the idea of open source as well, like make everything open that can be open. and look at like how people solve problems in the past. Not much to learn from that from people that don't do like N64 games, but I still think it's fascinating that they use like Docker and all the cool stuff to actually simulate a Nintendo 64 GameCube, and like it's really very, very detailed. The other thing that Dan was very excited about was when I showed you this one. It's basically somebody had a portfolio that looks like an XP website.
I think it's the best one. I mean that it's probably the best one I've seen in terms of execution. Daniela, have you checked this one out? What are your thoughts?
Yes, I have.
Accessible?
I didn't even want to look at the accessibility factor of it, but when I opened it yesterday, I spent, I don't know, 20 minutes trying all the options and dragging around files and frames, and it's amazing. The detail is crazy.
So
yeah, I mean,
smart.
there's been CSS frameworks to do that kind of stuff as well, and it really killed my double view. So that's interesting. Oh no! Oh no! Okay. Yeah. So I mean, it's interesting that people see this as like a cool thing to have right now. But I mean, when you remember that was the only operating system that you had, then the loading time is too fast that they actually have right now here. So I think that's the only thing they didn't do right.
Very true. I like the details of things, like they've even got the kind of pixel grid, to make it look like an old monitor. Even that level of detail, though, I had to do a bit of a round of applause. It's very impressive. And the sound on load as well,
Cool. All right. Let's hope that this one works again now in the split screen. No, I kind of shot my my edge. Interesting.
We can see it.
Something to file. Now, this one I've just used for quite a while, and again, it's going with the theme of Halloween. Bat is actually a replacement for cat, like catalog Unix command. And what I love about it is that it actually gives you line numbers and it gives you color coding. So if you actually just want to look at some HTML or look at some markdown file in your terminal, and you basically just want to get an insight, you normally do a cat just to see what the output is. But this one gives more colorful things in there. It's completely hackable. It supports every Linux distribution out there. And you can also just alias the cat to bat, and that one would give you that functionality. And cat is, I think, underused by a lot of people, that actually, instead of just opening things in the browser and waiting for hours to actually load, just doing a cat on the terminal to see what the output is a very, very simple thing of doing it. And I remember I was a bat, I remember a long time ago, that's also a thing, like if you want to brighten the day of your favorite developer, you can go to the terminal and do alias cat and then echo an ASCII cat out. So that's actually how to break somebody's experience in a funny way if you want to have some fun with your colleagues. But that's something to try out. I've used it for quite a while. I'm very excited about it. And now, type scale generator. I have no clue about that stuff. And probably Daniela or Dan, you know more about that?
Go for it, Daniela, if you're comfortable with it. Or...
I mean, it feels to me like always like a very like let's make sure that our typography is good, but a lot of these things have accessibility issues in terms of not allowing you to resize, right?
It's a bit of a bugbear for me, really, because I've got this sort of theory around like font sizing, and it's that the more trendy that you want your business to come across as. Now, what I'm thinking here is picture your sort of average Squarespace portfolio site that you see, very trendy, very modern, something really niche, and they will usually go with really bad type scaling, as in just a giant oversized, kind of neo-brutalist, a million pixels in size header, and then something really small underneath, because they're almost trying to play with that idea of scaling. And I find it really difficult, because I only realized then how led I am by hierarchy, and that, if something doesn't have a clear hierarchy in terms of its sizing on the screen, I definitely will read the biggest thing first, and then it will read in a strange way, like you're reading the subheading first. So I think this stuff's really important because it's meat and potatoes design. I've used that phrase twice, but it's like the least exciting thing about designing your font sizing is picking like a predefined scale for you. But I think it's there for a reason, and it might not look as cool, but it's going to be more useful.
I mean, Clamp has had a bad reputation in the accessibility world. Daniela, don't you agree? Like, because it allows people to set limits that probably shouldn't be there.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure about that. I've seen it used often and in cases where it worked, but I can imagine that if you limit the size and if it starts very small, then this could be an issue quickly.
Okay, let's talk about some more accessibility bits. Let's skip the other bits. Syntax highlighting. There's an interesting article about how people get that wrong by using too much. It's actually an accessibility thing. Let's talk about it quickly. Basically, he talked about that, like that. There's like, a lot of like syntax highlighting themes just use every color on this planet, and he actually says like, let's tone it down a bit and actually make it more readable that way. And I kind of agree. I'm always fascinated. There's a market for themes, for like Visual Studio themes as well. Like, I mean, a friend of mine did that. What's it called? The vampire scheme or something, or like and people pay for a color scheme for VS Code, and it fascinates me because, like, I mean, if you really care that much, then just spend the effort of making your own rather than just like, this is weird. But I like his idea because I've seen a lot of themes that just basically overwhelm me as well with more colors than needed, just because we can. But yeah, it's an interesting how. I mean, you should never rely on color alone. But in this case, as soon as we got syntax highlighting, editing become much more approachable for people in coding as well, because you don't have that block of text in front of you. Like Daniela, you started as a developer probably a lot later than I did. Like, did you ever have to encounter an editor that didn't have color coding?
Not an editor, but while studying, all my exams were printed out code in black and white on paper, so that was kind of difficult to handle. So I am glad I only had to encounter it during my exams and not on a daily basis, but that wasn't fun.
Yeah, I mean, the amount of like errors you can find just by color coding in the editor is quite a good thing as well. But this is an interesting idea to say, like, don't get overboard with too many colors. Now, I loved this one that was around for last week as well. When it comes to screen readers and explaining people about screen readers, it's always just every 5 years I have to start from scratch. And I love that they basically say that, like, not only blind people use it, people can use screen readers in the same way. All screeners don't work in the same way. A specific version of website app is not a good idea, and so on and so forth. When you reach out to people, do you feel like that there is a worry that people don't want to think about screen readers, or do you think there is people are getting more aware that there's more people with more needs that come to their product?
I mean, I feel like awareness is increasing, but one of the biggest issues I see in the first place is that people think accessibility is only for people who are blind, and people who are blind need a screen reader, and like that's it. So most of them are not aware of other disabilities, and then also for people with visual disabilities that there are different ways of navigating. And so I think the article highlights all these different things and misconceptions in a very good way, because I have to explain it over and over again as well, because people just don't know, essentially.
Mm. And I mean, I love that there's things built into operating systems. Like, I just tried that out, like the triple pad, like when you got a Mac, like 3 fingers, double tap on your thing, just scales the whole page. And I use that from time to time when my glasses are dirty or something like that. There's all kind of features that people don't use enough that are already built in there. And I mean, we had this discussion last week as well with another accessibility expert. Like, for you as a developer, like, do you use a screen reader yourself to test things, or do you think it makes more sense to partner with somebody who's reliant on a screen reader because they are more better at testing things with it?
I would say it is useful in the first instant to test it myself, but then to double check with a person who uses it like daily. Because I feel like it doesn't make much sense if my website or my component I'm testing isn't accessible enough to then test it straight away with a person and that is using an assistive technology, because maybe you're not even getting that far in your feedback in what you actually want to have tested because there are other obstacles. So I would say that you as a developer should check first that like the biggest things are fixed, and then I mean, even like checking it with one or two people is sufficient in most cases, and to get feedback on it. And like more complex interfaces or more complex components, I would evaluate with a lot of more people. But yeah, I'd say it makes sense to also you as a developer check it.
I mean, what always annoyed the hell out of me is that the inbuilt ones that come with operating systems right now, which wasn't a thing in the past, are actually the ones that the people who are dependent on using a screen reader are not used by them. Like JAWS is still the number one used one, and then NVDA is the follow-up, and like Narrator on Mac, or no, Narrator on Windows, and whatever it's called on Mac, is hardly used by people. And it's just or maybe because people that I know that I worked with for a long time didn't use that one. But I love, for example, that when you install a new MacBook, it starts with audio, and it basically says, like, as a blind user, I can install a Mac without actually having to see the screen. And I think that this awareness is really cool to have, but that the inbuilt ones are not the ones that most people use is really frustrating, because I don't want to spend money on NVDA. I don't need to, but with JAWS I would have to, and it feels like an extra expenditure that doesn't make any sense in this case. But yeah, it's a good, yeah. Sorry.
I just wanted to add on that I feel it ties together with what we were saying in the beginning of the live stream, with YouTube having all the shortcuts with people not knowing about it. I feel like it's similar here, that people don't know their options. Because, for example, I did a study for my master thesis with 20 people with visual impairments, and every person was using their assistive technology differently. And when I interviewed them and asked, like, oh, what features would you love to have? What options do you need? Most of them told me things that are already available to them, but they just don't know they exist, because there's no education from what can you change in your browser settings or in your system settings. So they just don't know. And I think this is something where it could be improved a lot.
Yeah, and I mean, let's dig into it. I mean, you're a person that improves these kind of things by making the whole accessibility world and inclusivity more aware to people. So, what are the products that you're building, or what are the things that you're actually showing people? And I mean, you're sharing your screen, so we can actually switch to that one, because I guess we're done with the links that we have here.
Perfect. Yes, I brought some different links which I think could be useful to different people. And so the first thing I have here is Elephant, which I was mentioning at the beginning. And Elephant is an interactive online course for web accessibility that is completely free. You don't even have to sign up. You can just start. Sign up is just if you want to save your progress, essentially. And so this is a project I started together back at the university with my closest friends, and we still maintain it as open source project. I built it together with, just some quick name dropping, Luca Pircha, Thomas Dax, and Michael Hinterhofer. And we created the concept, the development, and then we had designers come in, Johanna Wicht and Fabian Heller, to give it like the interface design and the corporate identity. And so I want to quickly demonstrate how it is used, because it's pretty simple. So the whole goal was to educate developers who already can code but don't maybe have learned about semantic HTML or the basics of HTML, and don't want to dig through hundreds and hundreds of words, because a lot of the resources that are available are primarily text and people are lazy in reading, I'd say. So we tried to create different challenges. And so So far, we have some easy and medium challenges, which are all about different accessibility topics. So for example, if I select our medium challenge here, it is about buttons versus links. And so every challenge is split down in different levels, and each level is about one specific topic. And we have 2 different kinds of things available. So for example, if I start right here, I have a coding challenge. I have some instructions with background information on the topic, why this is important, and then the clear goal of what I want in this level. So we want a link. And now I can start just coding right away, and everything I do will be in the live view below. If I can tap with one hand. So, okay, so we see in the live preview below, we have the link. If I think this is the way to go, I can go on and submit. And then Elephant is evaluating what I have sent in. But as we can see, it was not quite sufficient. So we have some things that are okay, but then we have other things that are still not okay. So I can have the option to retry. And if I say, oh, I really don't know how to go about this, I have the option of a hint where I can go in, have some more information. We made it a bit tricky because you can't just copy and paste the solution here. So you really have to go in and like type it all out, which I'm not going to do right now because I only have one hand available holding the microphone. But basically, this is how you can go about it. And the second option we have is a quiz. So we have some quiz levels where you are prompted with a question, and then you have multiple answers available. So for example, here, you're building a newsletter form. Which element should you use to submit the form? Neither an anchor element or a button element. So let's say neither and see what happens. This was the wrong answer, so I can retry. So maybe it is a button element. So let's try this one here. And that's correct. And I can go on and proceed to the next level. And I always see what is already done. And if I go back to the whole challenge overview, I can see where I'm currently working on, what is still there left to do. So there's some things available here. And if anybody, as it is open source, wants to contribute in any way regarding content or also coding, feel free to shoot me a message or just try it out yourself.
Or you can fork it on GitHub and do a pull request.
Yeah, that's totally fine. It's on GitHub. It's completely open, and we also have some docs there. So feel free.
What's the format of the quizzes? Is it just a JSON object, or is it just like that you have to do it bit by bit?
I'm not entirely sure right now because we just changed it because we were moving instances. But I think now it should be a JSON. But I'm not 100% sure on that. But I mean, you can just submit a JSON and I can put it in the correct format if you don't have more time to delve into it. So
I love how slow it is. I love how basically just learn something rather than like, and here's your boom 100+ and points and now share with your friends on X what you've done. I love that you basically kept it very, very much like here's your own pace learning things. How much users do you even track how many users you have or how successful?
Yes, so currently this is not accurate anymore. I just looked up yesterday. We have almost 4,000 registered users. And here are some stats from, I think, half a year, maybe a year ago on like which are the most popular challenges we have. And we recently also added this mobile-friendly challenge, which is only a quiz because the coding editor doesn't quite work on a mobile phone. I mean, it could, but it's not a pleasant experience. So if you're like, I don't know, on your way to work and you just want to review some content, you can do it with the quiz levels.
That is really cool. I love it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Do you know what? I would just to sort of pick up on things that people have said to us in the past about this, because it's somebody said, one of our guests about sort of accessibility and how, it's this never ending thing that you need to keep kind of that you could never there's no end, right, to kind of accessibility. And that when we kind of talked about this idea of could you learn through kind of quizzes or little challenges like this, there was sometimes a feeling of like, oh, but there's just too much to learn. You know, how would you possibly do it? And I think you've nailed it, because this is there on the homepage, one step at a time, broken down into manageable pieces. And if you get to the end of that, or, you know, you get quite far along, you're able to recognize loads and loads and loads of things from all different perspectives because of the focus of the challenges. And you won't get everything, but you're definitely going to get a good amount of accessibility issues. So I think you've nailed it, as well as making the UI like really pleasant to use and look at. It's just beautiful, uncluttered. Love it. Absolutely love it.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, that was really our goal, to help people not be overwhelmed with all the resources that are out there, because I mean, we are limited in what kind of challenges we can do, because we also need to be able to automatically check it, and you can't like check all accessibility things only with automated testing. But like for starting and like learning the basics, or like reviewing the basics you have once learned years ago, I think it's a great way to start.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
And if you want to get investment, just basically replace all the loading and analyzing messages with thinking, and then say it uses AI.
That's a great idea.
Cool. So this is Elephant. Try it out, and I think it's a very, very cute idea to basically get started without being overwhelmed. Because there's lots of like learning courses on MDN and Heterological, and other people do that. But I always feel like they're overwhelming. But this is just a joyous little thing to do that editors should do for you as well. But a lot of people forget about the basics, and it's very simple to break things. It's very easy to make a form submit when you press the button as well, or when you use a keyboard, or when you use a voice recognition, and that's what a button does, and a link wouldn't do that. Cool. What else you got for us?
Yes, another link I brought is a website with some accessibility bookmarklets I coded and designed back at my former company, because I think this is more for people who are testing accessibility. I mean, it can also be used by devs, but what I often encounter when I do manual accessibility testing, I use a lot of different browser bookmarklets, but also browser extensions, as you can probably see up here. But sometimes you're testing websites or PDFs or things where it is not possible to install something, like because of corporate restrictions, for example. So then it's very good that you have a browser bookmarklet, because what that basically is a snippet of code you can save in your bookmarklet bar. I have a lot of different ones in use, as you can see here. And you can use it for testing. And so on this website, we collected 2 different bookmarklets my colleagues coded. One is a color contrast checker, and the other one is BART. And I wanted to quickly show you the first one, the color contrast checker. I mean, there are tons of color contrast checkers out there, but what I find particularly useful, if I want to install it, I could just drag it to my bookmarklet bar and then open it. I can drag it around, and I have this pipette tool where I can go in and just select my colors to check what the contrast ratio is, and then I see for WCAG, is it complying or is it not complying? And then I can also go in and copy a text that it is explaining if it is failing or not, to directly use in my report, for example. And I can also quickly take a screenshot. And the thing is that it not only works on websites, it also works on PDFs I have open, or anything I have currently open on the screen with this pipette. So that's pretty handy, because sometimes you maybe can't get into the developer tools, or with a PDF, like how do you get the color otherwise? So that's pretty handy. Mm-hmm. And the other one, BART, is also for testing. I implemented a little bug on the Elephant page to actually show you, because I didn't want to like blame any other website. But if I launch BART, we can see we have a serious issue on this website because we don't have a title attribute. And what BART is basically doing, it is using Xcore to scan the website. And then you have some different options you can use. And then here I can see, okay, this is my issue. It's serious. I have an option to highlight the error on the page. So I will highlight the whole page because it is the HTML element. But if it would only be like this button, it would highlight the button. I also have some links to go to get it fixed, to have some help there. And so this is also an option to like run a quick check if you're not able to install anything into the browser you're using for your testing.
This is very cool. I mean, I worked on the developer tools for Edge for 5 years as the product manager, and I put a lot of stuff into there as well. But the problem is that the developer tools are existing of like 27 different tools inside tools, so it's really hard to find these things. One thing we did as well is put like an extension for Visual Studio Code that actually, while you're coding it, it tells you those things, like your title is missing, and we're also using Xcore and the deck links to actually explain, or DEQ, I never know how to pronounce them. And it's interesting to just do a quick spot test with that kind of stuff. There's also extensions like Accessibility Insights for Microsoft that allows you to tie in with your bug tracker to actually, when you find issues like that, to file bugs directly. So I found that really useful as well. But I love that you can just do bookmarklets. So people forget about that. It's such a wonderful art, because you don't need to write an extension and then worry that Google is changing the extension model again for browsers, when you just can inject some JavaScript into the page and create whatever you want with these kind of things. So it's a very cool little opportunity to try these things out. With the contrast checker, the biggest problem I found with like half transparency and things like that, like you, even from the rendering of the browser, from the engine directly, it couldn't tell us what the real contrast is there. So it's sometimes really important to actually do a spot check with people as well. Like, this is not readable, even if it does have the right contrast out there.
Exactly. I second everything you're saying. And what I especially love about like bookmarklets in general in the accessibility space is that they're all out there. Nobody's charging for them. They're like free to use because everybody wants to help others out to make it more pleasant to search for accessibility bugs and being able to fix them. And that is also pretty nice, I think.
Very old school thing to do. I love it. Yeah. Really cool.
Yeah. Yes, and I have one last link and then I'm done on my end, which is just my master thesis I was mentioning before. I wanted to share it as a resource because, I mean, the study was about accessibility overlays, but I don't want to get into that. The thing I wanted to highlight here is that you have the whole thesis available, which in a PDF form is like 160 pages, I think. But I feel like it is a good summary of resources to use if you need arguments for example, why is it a good idea to test with people with disabilities? What are the advantages? What are the disadvantages? Also some tips on how to facilitate the user research with people with disabilities. Then there's also what we mentioned earlier about not knowing about keyboard shortcuts or options. It was the same with the accessibility overlays. One of my findings was that people don't realize that the button is there, that the options are there because they're not educated on it. And it is also a UX problem. So there's also a lot of research and actual data on that, and a lot of links to other studies and resources on these topics. So I think if you need some insights or some data to back things up or to look further into different things, you can find a lot of different information here on UX and accessibility and user research. So I wanted to share it.
Yeah, I mean, that was the big bad of accessibility world in the last few years, the accessibility overlays. And I mean, it gets even worse now with people saying like, we're using AI in our overlays to automatically fix all the issues in your website for you. Did we win, or is this still a thing? Do you talk to customers who basically just say we could buy that and not worry about accessibility?
Yeah, it is still a thing, unfortunately. But I feel like because, like with the law that came in effect in the EU, with websites needing to be accessible, people suddenly freaked out as if the information wouldn't have been there for like forever. And so we have this big problem of developers not knowing how to code accessibly, designers not knowing what to do, and organizational structures within companies not being like not being able to offer accessibility education, or like even allow it to be an integrated part of the organization. So people are just freaking out and see it as a quick solution. And even if you advocate against it, most say, yeah, but for now I will still try it. I don't want to get sued. I'm scared. Like maybe it can help in some way. And they just, yeah, they try it anyways. So I think there's much more to do.
It feels like this snake oil salespeople that fix everything for you without having to think about it. I mean, disability is not a one-off state, as you said before. Like there's no blind people and sighted people. It's always a sliding scale. There's always all kind of things. People might have different disabilities. That if I take my glasses off or they're broken, I'm basically screwed, and I cannot do much about it. Like these are the situational awareness of what you do, and I love that you do all this work, and that was your thesis. It also comes with inclusion, like blocking people out because of things that they are, and where the language, simple language, all kind of things that are getting in there. I just realized like we should do a coffee with developers for like a longer talk, just talking through Elephant and how you build that one. That would be fun to have for our audience as well. But for now, I think let's quickly go back to our resources, because we forgot about one thing. Which is like, ING was the people who actually sponsored this today or wanted to see. So if you want to work for them, ing.de Karriere, which is only for German words. But this here is actually an extension that I wrote, a bookmarklet that I wrote for a friend as well, because there was one thing that she said is the most annoying bit, that it's really hard to find out like which images have what alternative text. And that's exactly what that does. You roll over something and it tells you like what the alternative text of something is. And also you can drag it around, and yeah, that one's on GitHub. If you want to build something like that, you can start from that one as well, because it's super simple. And I think it's just beautiful that you can extend browsers in that kind of fashion. And I found that funny, because when I worked on developer tools, I'm like, what's the easiest way to find out which images don't have an alternative text on the page? And I'm like, oh, yeah, I mean, you have to take the selector and roll over each of them, or you can go to the terminal and do like a console log with all the images that don't have an alternative text, or you can write a style sheet for all images that don't have an alt, put a red border around them. There's all kind of stuff to do. But this was like 10 minutes for me to write, and it's helping somebody else to do some spot checking right now. So if you feel like helping people, bookmarklets are a fun thing to have. Maybe we should do an article about that. That it's one of those forgotten arts of the things out there. Cool. So to finish off, like, what else would you want people from our audience? Do you have a message for them to actually call out something you want?
Ooh, that's a tough call. But I just love that you help give awareness to accessibility, because you were mentioning before that a lot of your guests recently are talking about accessibility, because I feel like it's important, and we're still very much at the beginning with the people actually creating digital products not knowing enough to facilitate change. So please continue educating yourself. If you are in the accessibility space yourself, get the courage to go on stage and use your voice and help spreading the message, educating others, because I feel like it's very important to really move forward. And if you're a developer, a designer, or product manager, or somebody who wants to know more, there are a lot of different resources available in different formats. If you don't prefer text, maybe there are videos or there are coding challenges. So there are a lot of different things. So I feel like there's something for everybody. We just need to get started.
Cool. Dan, anything from you?
Just to reiterate, that Elephant, I think it's a great name as well. I've got to say, very nice. But also just that, we spent some
graphics. Like it's beautiful,
Yeah.
But there's a big elephant in there.
Yeah. We figured developers love things that have to do with animals. So
clever. But definitely go and check it out. That's what I would say. We spend so much time talking about 10x engineers. Like that's how you really do it, though, right? Go there, learn something new that's tangibly going to make a difference to people using your website. To me, that's what we should all be doing. But just to say thank you, Daniela. I really appreciated it, and looking forward to having you back for Coffee with Developers.
And you can learn so much from And you can learn so much from building a system like that rather than using an out-of-the-box education or quiz system to build these kind of things. Like building it yourself teaches you a lot of stuff as well. And I guess you found a lot of challenges to make that thing accessible, but that's details that we can get into when we do that stuff. So that's it from We Are Developers Live for today. From me, I think like as you slide down the banister of life, may your journey be without splinters. And with that, I've said you goodbye. Bye-bye.
Bye.